everything there, sir?
Everything is good. Thank you.
Great, great. And we are so thankful that you have decided to spend the early morning of the day with us today. So, friends, you must be knowing, sir is joining us from Dartmouth, MA, USA, and it's about 7 a.m. there. Am I right, sir?
That is correct. Yes.
It's a pleasure to have you. And friends, I would now like to introduce the guest to all of you. Mr. Oak is an author, researcher, adjunct faculty at the Institute of Advanced Sciences, Dartmouth, Massachusetts, USA. Mr. Oak holds BS and MS in Chemical Engineering and Executive MBA, an assistant professor at School of Indic Studies, Institute of Advanced Sciences in Massachusetts, USA. He is an author and ardent student of astronomy, archaeology, geology, genetics, quantum mechanics, economics, ancient narratives, and philosophy, pursuing his research in reverse chronology, particularly dating of various prehistoric events. He has published several books and research papers on the dating of ancient Indian texts. Professionally, he has been quality management Six Sigma professional at GE. I extend a very warm welcome to Sir. Today's topic is very, very interesting. We would all love to know how one should pursue research. It's a very relevant topic for educators. We keep asking children to research. When they study, they must do a lot of research. And researching skills considered to be one of the most important, relevant, and useful skills in today's times. So without taking you any further with introduction of the topic, I would like to hear from Sir, and let's all benefit from his expertise on how one must research. One thing which is noteworthy here is this is very relevant to the NEP, the new national education policy proposed in India, which talks about Indian knowledge systems, and that draws heavily from our ancient texts and scriptures. So when we talk of that, there is a lot of mystery involved there. There's a lot of doubt there. What's written in those books, is it correct? Is it really 5,000 years old? Is this information really from 2,000 years old? And what happened in that era? Who has seen? How to know what is right and what is wrong? So, friends, it's going to be an exciting session. And we have somebody who has a scientific background, a scientific bent of mind, and who just doesn't go by what's written in the scriptures, but knows how to verify and justify facts. So, thank you so much, sir. It's a pleasure to have you. Over to you now.
Okay. Thank you. And just if you can confirm that everyone can hear me well, the volume quality is good. Okay.
Yes,
So namaskar to everyone. Greetings of the new Gregorian year to everyone. Okay, just right into the new year 2021. Thank you for the great introduction. What I would like to do is share a few thoughts. Now, I'm not going to talk so much more about my specific research, but the research methodology. Okay, and don't be surprised if it comes out somewhat disappointing. Now, I'm just using that word deliberately, okay? Because when we think of a research, we think of something esoteric, something complicated, and there must be some kind of training that the person must have, unless otherwise you cannot do it. In reality, all of us do the research every day. All of us have theories. Okay, all of us have theories in our mind, and I'm going to start my presentation in a second. But just before that, think of ma'am, thank you for staying on the camera, so I feel like I'm talking to someone, talking with someone, rather than just talking to myself. For example, if we are, I mean, in India, here, not many people use water buckets, I mean, mostly it's the, but in India, still people use a lot of, water buckets. And it's a very good example that most people will able to relate to. Suppose we are working in our house and we lift a bucket of water. And in our mind, we are busy, doing things. And sometime it has happened to us. Most of us would have this experience. We lift the bucket and we are surprised when we lift it. The reason is we thought it was filled with water, but it comes out empty in our hand. Like it just gets in our hand and you say, what happened? Who emptied the bucket? As simple as that. Or let's say we are going down the stairs, not so much in a building, but let's say we are going to some trekking place, or some natural setting. There are staircases, and when we go down, we may stumble, we may sprain our leg, and we just say, what happened? We look back, turn back, and he says, who removed that stone? Who removed that step? I mean, as simple as that. And we may blame some person, we may even curse and whatnot. Or in those both examples, what happened is we are surprised because we had some assumption in our mind, that we had a theory. In these two cases, we had a theory that the bucket must be filled with water. In the second case, we had the theory that the step there must be there. Who removed that step, right? So when we are surprised based on our assumption, that's when the research begins. Such as who emptied the bucket and who removed that step, as simple as that, okay? And that's where the research begins. So with that, let me start sharing my screen. And then, okay, there we go. And please do tell me when you see the my screen that says discover the seeker within you. Yeah, you see it? Okay,
yes,
very good. Okay, so let's begin with a simple question. Anytime we have any subject, usually our basic questions are what? What, when, why, where, how, those are our questions. Who? So why do we do what we do? And a greatest philosopher of science in the Western world, he said, life is problem solving. Many of us would agree with that, okay? Now, problem, not in the sense of negative. It can be negative, it can be positive. And that's what we're going to look at too. But life is problem solving. Just like as simple as we lifting empty bucket and being surprised and then asking the question, who emptied that bucket? Which of my kid emptied the bucket, so to say. Or when you stumble on a staircase, you are saying, who removed that step? Or why was I not careful in taking the steps downward or upward and so on, okay? So life is problem solving. Now, I'm just quoting a couple of verses from Bhagwad Geeta. Okay, the very small text of Indian civilization, 700 verses, very powerful. Adhishtanam tatha karta karanam cha pratak vidam vividhascha pratak cheshta daivam chaivatra panchamam. Sometimes many surprising thing happens. I'll get to the subject in a second. But for example, when I was reading, this is going back 15 years or so, there is one famous business professional, Nassim Nicholas Taleb. Okay, he's originally from Lebanon, like a Syrian Christian, like working here. A very famous name. If you have read the books such as Fooled by Randomness or Black Swan, and he has written many books. When I read a couple of his books, and something was coming to me. Now, I'm a student of Bhagwad Geeta for almost all my life. That somewhere in one verse, whatever he is trying to say through his 2-3 different books is there. But I couldn't put a finger on it. And one day, I get all my thoughts during the shower, I would say, when I'm taking my shower. Suddenly, this verse that I'm showing you came to me. And I said, essentially what he's saying in his books is nothing but that all is in a very summary form covered in this verse. Now, I am not saying that he read this verse and therefore he wrote the book. I am saying whatever the point he's trying to convey is there in this verse. Okay, all of his books, I'm telling you. Now, quickly, I'll give you a translation, so not test you here on with your Sanskrit. But essentially, now those of you, in case there are people who understand Marathi, I thought, Mumbai based, so I put some Marathi translation also. This is Vinoba's Gita. What essentially it says, like who, when, why, I mean, who does it, what we do, as we said. Why do we do what we do? For a simple reason. Now, that's why I said this can be very disappointing answers. We do certain things because we want to do those certain things. Okay? We do certain things because we as an individual feel that we are capable of doing those things. Okay? And of course, we are having a blast doing those things. Couple of examples. I mean, blast doesn't mean it's very easy. I'm not saying that. Think of a mother and a child. Okay, those of you who have that experience, especially the moms in the audience, they don't know, and the onlookers also looking at them. Actually, when mother is, mother and a child, that relationship is there, you will find it's a lot of hard work. But mothers don't feel it that way. Okay, because that's something that's a desire, and something that they love, and they have the natural skills to do it. Okay, so they are having a blast. They may be exhausted, but they are having a blast. The another thing is, many times in my now that I'm doing this research for a long time, many people come. I mean, I do mentor many researchers, not many, possibly less than a dozen. Okay, less than 10. In fact, like 6 or so. But in terms of requests, like hundreds of people come, hundreds of people write me emails and says, can you be my mentor, and so on. But sometimes the challenge is, that's why I'm asking. I mean, that's why I pose the question. Does the individual has what it takes? Okay. So do they have a desire? Do they love it? Otherwise, there is no point doing it. Then the other question that people will ask, and it's a very genuine question. Okay, where do I start? And that's a very true question. But again, I'll just give one example. Say many of you would know the name, our Bharat Ratna, Bhimsen Joshi, who passed away a few years ago. Now, he was known as a great Hindustani classical singer. Now, number of you may know the story that at a very young age, his household was strict as far as the classical singing was concerned. And so he ran away from his house. He went around India, okay, lived through very difficult conditions with different famous musicians, okay, all around India, and then finally came back, and his father invited him, say, okay, come here and learn. But the point is, he was feeling such a desire and he ran away. And I'm not encouraging anyone to run away or so, but nor I am discouraging anyone from running away. My point is, he did not go and ask someone, should he run away? Okay. The point I'm making is, that is such a natural desire that comes to you. And that's what it is saying. You have a certain desire. Then you yourself, as your personality, then the various tools that you are skillful at, and then your knowledge, vyapti okay, your background knowledge. So one suggestion I would have for children, whoever listening, for teachers, for parents, everyone, the professionals, and this is not something new, but one has to read voraciously, because that just builds the base. Something else that is kind of with a new education methodology, I don't mean the India system, but especially in America, I see that challenge with sometimes my children. Like, I grew up like remembering things. You would know the word ratta, and we put it down. So ratta, what is there? Well, there is no brain in it. Well, I'll tell you that is partly true. That just remembering things, it doesn't have it. But unless there is a theory. I mean, it's not a theory. It's a fact. Unless you know, you cannot think. And unless you remember, you cannot think. Okay? So because, in order to think, you need something to connect the dots. The quick next one. Now the question to ask is, do you as individually, do you have what it takes? And here I'm going to pull I love frameworks. Okay? I worked in the business corporate world for many years. I mean, all the time, even as a consultant, now I work with them. And it's very easy to convey through certain visual pictures, few words. So again, I'm pulling these words from our Indian civilizational tradition. Do you have what it takes? And I'm going to use the word Shraddha, samshay, and jijnyasa. Think of these words. As soon as you hear the word Shraddha, like a faith, belief, reverence, that's how many times it is translated. Partly they are correct, partly they are wrong. But just even in Indian context, everyone would understand the word Shraddha. And as soon as you hear the word Shraddha, what do you think? Many times, immediately we think Andhashraddha. Okay? Actually, you know what? Shraddha and Andhashraddha, there is no difference. It is a belief. Okay? It is your conviction that something is what the way it is, or something might be the way you think, and so on. You may be right, you may be wrong. As soon as you hear of a samshay, what do you hear? Again, immediately we have a negative reaction most cases. It doesn't have to be negative. In fact, in the Indian tradition, you will find the samshay has a very honorable place. And so does in science. And the last one is a jijnyasa, which is curiosity. And we will talk about how they are of a different kinds. But quickly, I'm just pulling Shraddha and Buddhi out of it. And what is their role? So the samshay is one word, and the other one is a Shraddha. Now I'm going to put think of everyone the x-axis and the y-axis, right? Everyone is familiar with that. And then we also need to know the limits. So on a samshay, I'm saying that samshay meaning a doubt. The doubt can be of a mind, or a doubt can be of a buddhi. What is the doubt of a mind? You hear something and you say, oh, no, I don't agree with it. No, yeah, I agree with it. I'm not convinced. Yeah, I'm convinced. Sounds good. That's at the mind level, okay? And that's not very desirable. It's a okay start, but it's not desirable. The samshay of a buddhi looks like this. As soon as you hear something, you say, is this true? Okay, why? I mean, how can I test it if this information is true? For example, everything that we hear on the TV, or everything that we read in the newspapers and magazines and books, even books, I'm talking, textbooks, but even other research books, doesn't matter what subject. As soon as you hear, the question to ask, how is this possible? If you're reading a Harry Potter book, and these kids going into that fractional platform, 9.34, whatever that platform is, very interesting, right? And you say, how is that possible? Instead of somebody saying, no, that's not possible, I'm not convinced. That is a mind. But other person says, how is that possible? Okay, is there some higher reality? That's a buddhi. On a shraddha, the shraddha can go from a very tamasic, very lazy type of faith, and to extremely sattvic, extremely goodness type of faith. Now, how does that work? I'll show you here. The Shraddha is a huge place, okay? A conviction in anything. You need that conviction, okay? Why? Because it gives the karmashakti. You go around the world, not just in Vijnan or science, I'm talking in any field. The field of social service, religion, the science, doesn't matter. You will find the person who has accomplished something, and I'll tell you in a minute, good or bad, by the way, has accomplished based on their conviction. Okay, it may be a Hitler, okay, it may be a Ram, it may be a Ravan, it may be a Krishna, it may be a Duryodhan. Duryodhan was also extremely powerful. Ravana was an amazingly powerful person, okay? But so good or bad, they accomplish with a karma shakti, and that comes from Shraddha. Similarly, it is the samshay, the doubt, the potent doubt, devil's advocate, that gives you that jnana shakti, okay? That desire for a knowledge, that motivating force for a knowledge, okay? It's like, driving a car, and I don't know if you have seen this system in India. I'm sure in some cases it's known as a K5 system, very useful. The accelerator where you push the petrol is not in your feet, but just right there next to you. That one hand, the person is pressing it. Many people with physical challenges, handicapped, they can make a use of it, or even otherwise, okay? So think of that accelerator as that karma shakti, but you also need a steering wheel to keep the car in the right direction, and that is your jnana shakti, that is your samshay, a correction. And if you don't have that, quickly I'll go through this. What happens if you go to the bottom hand corner, like it's a samshay of a mind, and the shraddha is of a tamasic kind. Tamasic kind I explained, right? Which is to say, the person doubts everything, but then does not do anything. Then it's a very fearful, confused, and time-wasting type of situation, cognitive dissonance. They cannot make any decisions. They cannot truly understand whether something is right or wrong, and so on. If you have Shraddha, but you're still thinking samshay of a mind, then those people confuse claims or data for the truth. They'll hear something on the TV, they think that's true. I mean, their argument could be, oh, why would somebody tell the lie? Or they read something in the book, they think this must be true. Okay, if you go into the samshay of a buddhi, which is like a knowledge based, but there is a shraddha is of a tamasic kind, then again there is a confusion. They pretend knowledge for the truth. Remember, I talked about reading voraciously. So what that tells you is you just know, but you know doesn't mean it's true. See the difference, okay? Knowledge, but that doesn't mean it's truth, okay? It can be true, it may not be true. And what we need to do is to bring it all together. So the sattvic shraddha, but also the samshay of a buddhi, the devil's advocate, to validate and to contextualize. Now, how is that effort looks like? It's a fearless, but it's also humble, and it's solution oriented. It is always trying to solve the problems. That is the first one I showed you. Okay. Now, quickly, I'm going to take those two, but also going to add one more. So this is, I just showed you, right? Samshaya versus Shraddha. That's what I showed you. The Samshaya of a Buddhi, and if you resolve on it, it leads you to the satisfaction of your knowledge, jnana trupti. If you work on the Shraddha, and if it is of a sattvic kind, it leads to karmashakti. Well, it leads to karmashakti even if it's of a tamasic kind, but not the desired one. Okay. And the third axis is that of a jijnyasa, curiosity. But even curiosity has the range. Say kutuhal is the word I'm using. Now kutuhal means also curiosity, but I'm translating that as a idle curiosity. For example, in the social media, a number of you would be there, and so sometime I post an article, I post all the time, and then somebody will write at the bottom, he's saying, oh, great information, good information. And I cannot tell you how much it irritates me, because my objective behind posting that article is not just to get that compliment or something saying it's a good information. No, I really want to know, now that people came to know, either they already may know this information, if they don't know, can they critique it, and can they relate to some of their situation? So that jidnyasa, curiosity, should be there, which is prayojan, which means it should have a motive, it should have a purpose to do something with it. Okay. And I'm not saying always problem solving means something complicated. Sometimes you may just want to relax. Hey, I'm stressed and I want to relax, and therefore you may put a nice peaceful classical music, Western or Eastern, doesn't matter, whatever is of your choice, or maybe even a rock music, right, or some other music. My point is, you decided to do something so that you can pacify your mind. That's a saprayojan. Okay, that has a purpose. Let me quickly go through this. That is a phalprapti. Did it give you what you were looking for? Okay. So with that, these things comes. Now people think, okay, if you ask a question, that's a great thing. No, it's not. If you have a question, no one else is going to solve that problem for you. It is you who have to do it. Okay, somebody wants to, a mother wants to, a lady wants to have a baby. Well, the lady has to go through it, right? As simple as that. Okay, if you want to climb the Mount Everest, there is no point outsourcing that, right? Okay, hey, will you climb Mount Everest on my behalf? Somebody will, but that won't be fun for you, right? Okay, all right. So, which means you have to do self-study, swadhyaya, that's why. Then Shraddha, okay, Ishvara Pranidhan, some kind of conviction. And the beauty of Indian civilization is, for example, what in the West, atheist would be kind of looked at as, oh my God, okay, so he doesn't believe in God. That's how the West approaches. In India, that's not what it means. The India, we might simply say that the person might be fed up with the rituals. The person might be fed up with a very dogmatic religious aspect of it, because religious aspect again can be sattvic, it can be tamasic. Okay, so Ishwar Pranidhan, meaning you believe in that ultimate truth, you believe in that ultimate, there is an order in the universe, and so on, and you can give any name you want, right? And so the bottom left hand corner, if you look at it, now Bhagwad Geeta says it, samshayatma vinashyati, that samshay Bhagwad Geeta is talking is the samshay of a mind. Okay, it's not talking the samshay of a buddhi. And I'll show you how beautifully that samshay word comes everywhere. Okay, so the point I want to make it is, if you have a desire to research, it is only you can research. What I mean by that is other people can help you. But if there is no other person more excited about doing research about thing X than you, if that's what you want to see. There is no point giving a suggestion to another individual. Why don't you research on this? That doesn't work. Okay. All right. So these are just some parallel words. I'll go fast through it. Okay. Let's look at the tools. Professor Wheeler, I don't know if you have heard this name. At Princeton University, if you have heard, very famous university for a long time. Great, great scientist. At one point, there were like 20 Nobel laureates in just the Department of Physics, going back 50 years ago, 70 years ago, including Einstein, as you may know. So Professor John Wheeler, and he was a student of, he was a professor rather of Richard Feynman, if you have heard this name, a great, very articulate scientist, very famous scientist, again a Nobel laureate. Okay, When somebody asked him, how do you go? How do you do the research? How do you seek? How do you discover things? And his simple advice was, and that's why I said many times the advice can come out disappointing. He said, find the toughest problem in any discipline of life, any discipline of science, any discipline of your choice, and then go solve it. Okay, that's as simple as that. But of course, we are going to say now, where do I start? Okay, so some guidance there. Okay, how do we evaluate a truth claim? Before even we go solve the problem, we have to find out what others have done to solve the problem. That's what we call Purva Paksha in the Indian tradition. Okay, or in a research scientific language, we'll call it a review of literature. Now, sometime, those of you who might have involved in doing PhDs and whatnot, you might have seen sometime how lousy that process is done, almost done for the sake of it, like a ritual. No, this is a very rigorous process, even more than actually doing the final research. And in the triangle, what I'm showing you is, that's it, guys. Okay, again, what is science? This is it. Theory, evidence, objective testing, inference, background knowledge. Most of you working in the lab are doing it every day. Okay, and sometimes maybe not even conscious of it. Sir Karl Popper, again, the best philosopher of science in the Western world, at least, and one of my inspiration, I would say. I'm studying him for 30 plus years. I barely missed a chance to meet him. Like when I was in California, I mean, used to do my summer time at Berkeley. He was there. I just missed him by a few months, and then he passed away. He will describe scientific method or logic of scientific discovery as simply this. Now, focus on those 5 words, okay? I'll put that in some different fashion. But he says science or scientific method is nothing but a triangulation. You see the triangle there? A triangulation of explanation, prediction, and testing, which is that evidence, testing, inference. Explanation, prediction, testing, a triangulation of explanation, prediction, testing in the context of a theory and in the context of a background knowledge. Okay, now I'll tell you something. What Sir Karl Popper said, say in last 100 years, I mean, he was born 1904 or so, is sage Gautama has said it thousands and thousands of years ago. In fact, I have done the dating of Mahabharat, I have done the Ramayana and Rigveda. I have not yet succeeded dating the time of Gautama. He's very, very old, okay? And we'll briefly talk about it, the time of Mahabharat and Ramayana and Rigveda or so. But it's not only sage Gautama. Number of you, if you have heard about it, if you're not, I would say that as something you may consider. Initially, it may feel overwhelming because this is given in a sutra form, like a formula, E equal to MC square type, I'm just going to read the formula to you. So what just the Sir Karl Popper said about the scientific method, sage Gautam, Rishi Gautam, in his Nyay Darshana, he says something like this, even shorter, and that's why sometimes it's difficult to comprehend. He says, Pratyaksha, Anumana, Upamana, Shabda, Pramanani. That's it. It's like E equal to MC square. Pratyaksha, Anumana, Upamana, Shabda, Pramanani. He actually, believe it or not, he covered all those 5 in 4 words. Okay, with the Pramanani as a 5th word, you can say. Or a number of you, if you have not heard Gautama, sage Gautam in that sense, you might have heard Ahalya Gautam, and it could be him. And I'll tell you in case, if assuming he's the one, what is his timing, but we don't know. There are many of these Gautam. But you might have, definitely more than likely, you would have heard the name Patanjali because of the yoga. Okay, again, we confuse Hatha Yoga with that yoga. Hatha Yoga is just a warm-up, okay, for that Samadhi. But Patanjali also says the same thing, just slight modification. He says, Pratyaksha, Anumana, Agama, Pramanani. And if you go to Shaddarshanas, you will get these 6 different things. Okay. When I started, somewhere, say around 30, 35 years ago, when I was a 12th grade student, and then undergrad engineering in Mumbai, by the way, in Matunga area, UDCT, chemical engineering. When I started learning about science, scientific method, so initially I thought this is sufficient. But when I actually got active in my original research, I quickly realized that these 5 things are not sufficient. Okay, many people can do this fine in the lab, for example, but there is something beyond that. And then I have just given a name. I mean, it's not my name. It exists in our Shaddarshanas. Vijnana Buddhi, scientific acumen. You also need a tantra yukti, which is to say, once you have a problem, how do you go about solving it? So you lift the bucket is empty. Now you know someone did a trick with you, or someone emptied the bucket. Now, how do you go about investigating it? Or you miss the step, and how do you go about fixing it? Okay, that's a tantra yukti. And then the logic, which is to say, you might do an experiment, but you may draw a wrong inference. Does that happen? I mean, there are many humor jokes about it, right? So that's why you need a logical reasoning. The name I have given is Ashtakaran Kshipti, which is like an eightfold toolkit, or path. Okay. So now these also happen to be the three foundations of Indian civilization. One thing you will find is a freedom of thought. Unless there is 100% freedom of thought, you cannot have a scientific mind, which is to say, you are allowed to question the existing claim. That doesn't mean you just question and you stop. No, you present a better claim, and I'll come to that. You achara sahishnutta, which means endurance in conduct. Just to give you a quick example, my whole research started with one shlok, one verse from Bhagwad Geeta. Okay, when I just finished my master's in Canada, again in chemical engineering, and I had some time, so I went to a library Indian section. I ran into Mahabharat, which of course I was, Bhagwad Geeta I was studying for a long time. I found one verse in Mahabharat, Ya Chaisha Vishtuta Rajas Trailokya Sadhu Sammata Arundhati Tayapesha Vasishta Prashtata Kruta. The star Arundhati is walking ahead of Vasishta at the time of Mahabharat war. And very naively I thought, okay, well, I mean, I knew some astronomy. I said, one weekend and hopefully I will solve this problem. This looks very simple. This is in 1995. And then it took me 15 years, okay, until 2009 to solve the mystery behind this one shlok. That Achar Sahishnutta I'm talking is the endurance in conduct. I never gave it up. Even, when I'm giving my corporate interviews and people say, what else you do? What else you do? And I run out of all my ideas. Finally said, hey, you asked for it, I'm going to give it to you. And I used to talk about this Arundhati Vasishta, the problem I'm working on, during all those years. Finally, I solved that problem in 2009. And that's when the revolution started. Anyway, so endurance in conduct, you don't give up. That's very important. And then Niti Dharma, in the sense, you have to do this for the truth. Meaning you are not doing this for a quick limelight. The limelight will happen. The popularity will come. If it's deserved, it will come. Or it may not come. So what? I mean, the whole world may be miserable, but if you have made if you have solved the problem that truly you care about, you are happy. Okay, you are in heaven, I would say. In 2009, when I solved that problem, it was like Friday, I know, 8 May, Friday late night, 2 o'clock. I was working. This is like a weekend here. And when I solved it, first thing, I did not believe that I have solved it. Like maybe I thought I'm just deluded. I'm working 2 o'clock at night. When I finally confirmed that I have solved it, my desire wasn't something like, oh my God, let me tell it to the world, or oh, what a world will think of me. No, in fact, I had satisfied my curiosity of 15 years. I was at peace. And not that I was ready to die, but I said, if I die right now, I'm the happiest person in the world. I don't need anything else. That was 2009. So that's what I'm saying. The work is its own reward. You don't need somebody else to reward it. That may happen. Okay, let me go through this. So the emphasis is on the truth, not the manipulation, not to make a quick trickery, because you will be exposed. Remember, in science, okay, you will be exposed. If you don't use samshay, not only on other people, but even on your own theories, whatever you have claimed, if you don't critique it, somebody else will do it for you. And that is worse. Why don't you do it yourself? That's why that niti, like a moral, comes into the picture. Now, in reality, you may not see that in the world, that's fine, but that is what is expected. Eventually, if there is a fraud, it will be exposed, okay? So anyways, let me go fast through this. So again, we are using the 3 elements that I started with the first verse, right? Manovak kaya, you will always hear that. A mind, intellect, and our body. I mean, these are our tools, okay? Internal tools. And we can talk of the external tools. What are the external tools? External tools is a scientific acumen. External tool is logical reasoning, okay? You can go to Google and start learning about logical reasoning, okay? You can go to Google or books and start learning about the scientific method. You can go to our Tarka Shastra, which is the Nyay Darshana. You can go to all our Vaisheshika Darshana and Yoga Darshana, and you'll find this Vijnana Buddhi. Okay. Quickly, so if you go to the Nyay Darshana, these are the 16 elements. If you start learning on the logic, initially you'll think, oh, this looks like very rudimentary, because if you think something Indian and old, we think it must be rudimentary. I'll tell you my experience of 30 years. I have a great respect for Sir Karl Popper, as I said. He's one of my inspiration through all these years. I mean, I have the books right here, and I read every day, like a Bhagwad Geeta, I read every day. In spite of that, and he has done, there is no better philosopher of science than Sir Karl Popper, in my humble opinion. Having said that, when after 10 years plus or so, after 1993 to select 2003, when I came across Nyay Darshan, I was amazed. I would say what Sir Karl Popper, and it's not very easy to understand, but what he talks is just a small slice of a Nyay Darshan. Unfortunately, Nyay Darshan is given in that simple formula, you know, E equal to mc square, F equal to ma, force equal to the mass times acceleration, and so on. You know, that's how these words come. For example, Vitanda, everyone would know the word Vitanda, you know, very argumentative fight, useless fight. Okay, a perfect definition that Nyay Darshana gives. He says, Swa pratipaksha sthapana hino Vitanda. Now, because it's Sanskrit, it feels esoteric. Do you know what it says? If two people are arguing about something, it's very important that both of them have a very specific position. Suppose if we are arguing about the dating of Mahabharata war, when exactly it happened. Now, my research has shown, without, I mean, a very decisive way, that it happened 5561 BCE. If somebody wants to argue with me saying that's not correct, that person needs to have a claim. You know, that person needs a date. He cannot just simply say, I don't have one, but let me find holes in your argument. Because science is not about the absolute truth. I mean, that's our goal. But even if we reach that absolute truth, we would not know that we are there. So it's always a comparison between two claims. You know, so what a very scientific definition that what science talks about, just the word one Vitanda will have the entire scientific method. So pratipaksha sthapana hino Vitanda. Okay, let me move on. Now remember the word samshay, assuming you can read Devanagari. If not, that is this word samshay here. That comes on the logic side. Guess what? It also comes on the scientific acumen side. I have translated it as a skepticism, devil's advocate. Again, the Sanskrit word there is a samshay. For example, nishchay, pruthakkaran, vargikaran, taratamya, mahatva mapan, anukram, sahacharya, indriya pramanya, indriya bhram, okay, unification, which is ekikaran, and so on, karya karana bhav. This is a word from Vaisheshika Siddhanta. You can find I don't know if you're aware, you can find Newton statements of Newton's laws in Vaisheshika Siddhanta. If you don't believe me, after this, go to Vaisheshika Siddhanta, read the 200 sutras of Vaisheshika Siddhanta. Okay, just some fun. All right, let me move on. So these are our tools. Okay, then there are some razors. Okay, now after this, anytime you hear something, anytime you read something, immediately there are these the razors after. These are like metaphors. After these, some famous people like Christopher Hitchens, UK British individual, passed away again a few years ago. Well-known atheist. Indian civilization has no problem with atheist whatsoever, guys. Okay, one of his beautiful, I love it. He says, yeah, and that is again given in Nyay Darshana too in a different language. He says any claim made without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. Okay, do you know what Nyay Darshana says? He says no claim is intrinsically valid, meaning just because somebody said it, nothing is ever valid. You have to provide the evidence. That is what he's saying. And I'll not read all these, but these are some of the tools that we use. Now, how does this method of science, method of seeking, method of researching, how does it work? It's not a one-step process. You have a problem, you worked on it, and you solve the problem. No. It's an iterative process. You start with a problem, think of that bucket, and you say, let me propose a theory. My girl number 2 in my family must have done it. You know, she's the mischievous one. Or the boy number 3 must have done it. Okay, usually these days not 1, 2, 3, maybe 1 or 2. Okay, so you propose a tentative theory. Then you do the error elimination. How do you do it? You go and ask every family member, did you empty the bucket? Did you empty the bucket? Did you empty the bucket? Okay, so you're trying to find error elimination. They may agree, they may immediately admit, they may not admit, they may not remember. My bottom line is that investigation will finally take you to that error elimination. Now what happens is it takes you to the problem two. Now this is a funny story, I'll just say here. The problem two here could be, okay, now the water is gone, now what do I do? Okay, that's a simple one. But in science, what happens is, if you make a revolutionary theory, actually it leads to more bigger problems of higher complexity. For example, now quickly I'll summarize my research of 30 years. Now I have done research in other areas. You can go to my website and see 37 specific contributions that I have made. But here, this is only related to the chronology, or you use the word reverse chronology, going backward and trying to determining the timing of historical events. Quickly, today is where we are, 21st century. We are referring to Gregorian calendar. So 0 is the starting point for that Gregorian calendar, okay, which was assumed to be connected with the birth of Jesus Christ. Okay, now that's all, again, remember, that's a claim. If you go more detail into it, you'll be amazed, right? So there is a humor about it. For example, they say Jesus was born in 4 AD or 4 CE. Now, how can that be? I mean, it's a humor, because the 0 supposed to start with the Jesus birth. That's the assumption. It may be true, it may not be true, but it's a reference point. You will find those similar kind of assumptions also exist in our Indian tradition. I'll come to that. But if you go backwards, then we call it 5000 BCE, 10,000 BCE, 15,000 BCE, 20,000 BCE. As I said, I started somewhere around 30 years ago, specifically working on the problems. I started with that one shlok from Mahabharat. What it did in 2009, it gave me, in a scientific fashion, a certain interval. It said Mahabharat war is not possible anytime after 4500 BC. It's not possible anytime before 11,000 BC. And then I extracted 300 plus astronomy descriptions from Mahabharat. And just like a jigsaw puzzle, you'd solve a crossword puzzle or a Rubik's Cube. I solved it, and it takes me to that year 5561 BC. I did the same thing for Ramayana. Out of Valmiki Ramayana, when I read, I found close to 600, believe it or not, 600 astronomy descriptions, again in a jigsaw puzzle fashion, crossword puzzle fashion. When you put it together, testing every single observation in an objective fashion, meaning what I am saying is what you will able to see with a mathematical calculation, astronomy calculation, astronomy simulation. It takes us to 12,209 BC. And then very recently, when I say recently, 2016, somebody asked me to work on Rigveda. I couldn't use astronomy, but there I found the evidence of a river Saraswati and all the rivers of the northern India, okay, especially the northwest part. And using that, and using the Rigveda and the modern research on the rivers, we call it hydrology, geology, geophysics, geochemistry, morphodynamics of rivers. I could show, and this is a bit rough, not an exact year or anything, that the Rigveda, the last portion of Rigveda is, contemporaneous with the Mahabharata time. But the oldest portions of Rigveda are definitely, no ifs, no buts, more than 24,000 years old, at 22,000 BC. So that is in brief my research. Now, I came to this based on astronomy, hydrology. But since then, I have validated these dates using thousands and thousands and thousands plus of evidence or data points from different 20 plus disciplines of hard sciences. So just I gave the name, what did I say? Hydrology, geology, geophysics, geochemistry, morphodynamics of rivers, oceanography, climatology, physical anthropology, genetics, seismology, climatology, paleontology, you just name it. If the evidence exists, and if it can be related with whatever evidence is available in our ancient text, it corroborates, it supports these dates. That's all. That's what I'm saying. Okay. Against that, I'm also in consulting work, and my good British friend, he's British. He has read my work. He's impressed with it, and he said, "Nilesh, you need to put that dot there of European Enlightenment." Okay, the Europe went through a dark period, okay, of around 1500 years. Fortunately, around this 500 years ago or so, like that is that time there, the Renaissance, we talk the European Renaissance happened. So a lot of good things came out of it, some bad things, that's always the case, but a lot of good things. One is that scientific thinking in Europe, it was not there until 500 years ago, guys. You find in India, it is there for thousands of years. That does not mean we don't have our dogma. We also have done all kinds of funny things. For example, that European Enlightenment, one of the bad byproduct of that was the nonsense that possibly you guys may be forced to teach. I hope not, but you still might have to teach the Aryan invasion theory. I call it Aryan invasion nonsense. I call it Aryan invasion nonsense. For example, I mean, I'm not going to go there. I'm almost at my limit here. But the 5 elements that I told you, okay, the triangulation of explanation, prediction, testing in the context of a theory, in the context of a background knowledge. If you just start with the initial hunch, like you lift the bucket and it says, what happened? The languages of Europe, when Sir William Jones came to India and he learned Sanskrit and some other Indian languages, he say, wow, I see the similarity of Indian languages or Sanskrit, especially with the languages of India. Then he learned Panini, and with using Panini, he could see the connection within the languages of Europe. And he said, there has to be some connection. So far that was good. After that, what is been done, what is been created in Aryan invasion is utter nonsense. It would not stand the test of science at all on any of those 5 counts, other than this initial hunch, and we should give a credit. But let me just move on and let me end also. But similarly, let's take a blame for our own thing. In India, something that was used as a reference, just like 0 ADC, we use that as a reference to Jesus' birth. In India, for many years, we used the calendar 3102 BCE, I mean, going back that approximately 5,000 years, as a reference to making our calendars. We have to start calendars somewhere. Like the Greenwich Meridian, that goes through London. Now, I don't know if you know the story. London took it, I mean, UK took it from us. It used to go through Indore as a reference line, the prime meridian. Okay, and then by 1850s, they took it to Greenwich because they were controlling the whole world. Anyways, so similarly, we have this Yuga problem. That was something meant for calendar. We have taken it sometime literally, try to understand our history. It's a disaster. Okay, I'll just go fast through that. And because of that Western training, many of our Indic researchers also cannot go beyond 6,000 BC, beyond 8,000 BC, even when there is enormous evidence, not what I'm just showing you here, I'm not showing you other than just numbers, for a deep antiquity of Indian civilization, okay? But let me quickly end here. So how do we figure it out, okay? We need scientific acumen, we need that Tantra Shastra, logical reasoning, okay? So that's our framework, these are our tools, okay? Pratyaksha, Anumana, Upamana, Shabda Pramanani, or Pratyaksha, Anumana, Agama Pramanani. So as soon as you write in English, you say, okay, I understand this. As soon as you write a Sanskrit word, you say, that must be something religious, okay? The religion even doesn't apply to our Indian civilization. If you go deep into it, you will find it. It's not an ideology. Because remember, I showed you that freedom, Vichar Swatantra. Unless you have a complete freedom, you cannot reach the truth, okay? That's the basis. And how do we reach the truth? It's the best approximation to the truth. That's how science gets there, in a very iterative fashion. And science is not about absolute certainty. Richard Feynman says it's all about more likely versus less likely. That's why I said sometimes you may feel it disappointing. Remember, and so quickly, I think I might have a chart. Let me go fast through this. Yeah, quickly. This is my, I think, last slide. Can someone confirm if I go for 2 more minutes? Is that okay? Ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Quickly, I want to walk you through the best scientific theory. The best scientific theory to this day. Okay, coming from the Western world, but that applies to all of humanity. This is the theory of cosmology, very much related to the basis that I use for my research, the astronomy. Okay. If you go back 2,000 years, there was a Ptolemy's theory, okay? And I'm going to make it very simple. He said, Earth is at the center, everyone is rotating around it, okay? Now, what happened? These are the criteria. Like I have just written 13 criteria. Why 13? The font can be still big enough and it doesn't go to the next page, but there can be 20 criteria. Is there a clear statement of a theory? Okay, are you using all the evidence data points? Are there any new predictions? Are the predictions objectively testable, and so on? I want to just walk you through. So Ptolemy has something, and it was useful in the Western world, at least in Western Europe, for around 1500 years. Why? Because they did not have a better theory. Okay, there are lots of epicycles. I'll not go into a technical thing. When Copernicus, you would have heard this name, around that is 17th century, 16th century. Copernicus came and made one change. Again, I want to let you know, you should feel proud about it. That change was based on the knowledge coming from India through Jesuits, coming through Spanish, Cordoba, and then to the Europe. Okay, actually, even the data, now there are research papers written here in the West about where Copernicus got his model and even the data, but we'll not go there. But Copernicus put forward the model that the sun is at the center and the planets are rotating around it. You know what happened? He had to use, Ptolemy has to use some 70 complicated circles. I'm just making it simplified. When Copernicus said sun is at the center, immediately those 70 circles went down to 34. So, we are going in the right direction. So instead of using 70 circles to figure out something, now we have to use only 34. Okay. And before, the Ptolemy's theory could not explain the phases of the Venus. Now, many of us don't know about the phases of the Venus, but Venus also shows phases just like the moon, but you have to watch through the binoculars or telescopes. The phases of the Venus could not be explained with Earth at the center. Copernicus could explain that with sun at the center. Then came Kepler. And something, just look at line number 4 there, assumptions of epicycles. Kepler said these orbits of the planets are not circular, but they're elliptical, just one small change. Of course, it was a very hard work. Okay. Kepler's work is so great that, in fact, Einstein wrote a paper in praising Kepler and not Newton, although Newton's works is better than Kepler. Because what Kepler did with what he had, that is truly amazing. And so when he put this proposal of an elliptical orbit, guess what? All those epicycles vanished. You no longer need epicycles to calculate the position. And something I'll tell you just as a ending note, Surya Siddhanta has certain modified types of epicycles called pulsating epicycles. And what that allowed is, whereas in the Western Europe, they have to use the geometry and draw the lines to figure out all these positions, Surya Siddhanta, you can go and check it for yourselves. You can simply use the formulas in Surya Siddhanta to calculate the positions of the planets. Okay. And Surya Siddhanta is very, very old. I gave a talk in Oxford 2018 showing that it is definitely older. Listen to this, don't fall off your chairs. It's definitely older than 17,000 years. Okay. And actually now that additional research since 2018 that I have done with my co-researcher, we have shown that it is as old as or older than 38,000 BC. So 40,000 years old. So I know it's very hard to believe. You don't have to believe. You have to have a Shraddha, but you also have to have a samshay. But let's move on. Then Newton came. Okay, Newton explained why they go in elliptical orbit. Then Einstein came and he said, Newton, you are wrong. There is something else. And then on and on. That's the iterative process. Okay. All right. So now what are your options? Sorry, this is my last slide. Now you hear something. Now I don't mean just my research, anybody's research. Anywhere you hear, read. One possibility is, and nothing wrong with that, in the school when the teachers teach you, I mean the students, those who are listening, you better accept it. Otherwise you will not pass on the exam. Okay. Whatever they tell you, you must write that as an answer during the exam. Okay. That's how the world's education system works. Hopefully we can improvise on it. Accept it, share it with others. That is a Shraddha, that is a reverence, that is a conviction. But we don't have to stop there. Okay. So the characteristic of a revolutionary theory is it leads to growth of knowledge. It leads to problems of higher complexity. Okay. One thing, if you don't agree with it, okay, you're not convinced, you can go and study deeply and be convinced. So self-study, okay, use of your intellect, hard work. You can also critique it. You say, I don't agree with it. What nonsense. You can critique it brutally and logically. It's not about that person. It's about that person's claims. Sir Karl Popper has a very good quote. He says, best test, a good test, kill bad theories. We all survive to guess again. Okay. Now that is why we need a Vichar Swatantriya. Because if you again look at the medieval Europe, like Bruno, he said all these stars in the sky are like our suns. And just for saying that statement, he was burnt at the stake. Okay. It was very orthodoxy there. Just like in India, you are also seeing there are certain times when certain sections can be orthodox, or even whole society can become orthodox because of many social, political reasons and so on. Okay. The next one, even better. You can say, hey, that's not correct, but I have actually a better explanation. Very good. That's how science progress. Present a alternate and a superior claim. And just jokingly, I'm going to say, in spite of that, you're going to find people who are on that Shraddha, but on the tamasi side, who are on the jijnyasa, but only curiosity. They don't want to do anything. They're lazy and tamasic. And on the samshay, they only have a samshay of a mind. No, I don't agree with it. I am not convinced. You can't do much with those people. So for them, I have this. Take a hike, I say. In America, you can say that, with a smiling face. Take a hike, or in a very polite language in American sense, get lost. Okay. So there's some people who will just not change. We have to just recognize them for what they are. Eventually, they may change. And with that. So I'm going to stop. These are my books. If you're in India, if you find something interesting, exciting, you can read those. I'll tell you humorously, but also partly true. These are technical books, but still I would encourage you, if you're interested, or if what I just said excites you in a directional sense. I did not discuss my work. This is from Subbu publication. You can order online. The middle one is on the dating of Mahabharat. Bhishma Nirvana is related to that, again related to dating of Mahabharat. Shows that the same date. You cannot get another date. And the other book is on the Ramayana, 12,209 BC. If you are outside India, I don't think any one of you there, then through Amazon, these are the same books, slightly, different cover and sometime a different title, like the historic Ram. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing. My apologies for going 10 minutes over my allotted time.
No, sir, it's perfectly all right. You are well on time. In fact, I feel there is so much more to know in depth. I actually wanted to know a particular case, a particular fact which you have proved, and what did it take, what fields of different sciences that you have used to get to the fact. I'm sure what you have in your books has those details as well. So now we finally have to rely on reading those books, and I'm sure we are going to do that. I'm going to order a few myself today itself. So I would like to know, if you have to summarize this in context of teaching and developing that attitude for researching. What we have understood by now is it's a combination of so many things, right from Shraddha to samshay. It's about not just samshay, it is buddhi as well. And then the different traits of sattva to tamas, going through rajasic. So, if teachers have to, because, these are certain terms people don't use on a daily basis. People don't even read these things on a daily basis. Now, because you are into this field, it
Correct.
seems like a routine thing for you, routine terms for you. So if I ask you to say it in context of teachers and students and developing that attitude, how would you summarize? What should we work on in the classroom so that children can develop the right researching skills, and first of all, the curiosity to research?
Okay.
Like you said,
Great.
everything starts with that curiosity, the right question.
Right. Thank you.
And
Great. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I also have a request. In case if you speak Hindi, I don't know if you do.
Yeah,
If you speak
broken Hindi. हिंदी में बात कर सकता हूँ, is now, आपको कंप्यूटर का CPU पता है ना, CPU आप उसको बहुत ज्यादा टास्क दिए तो वो स्लो डाउन हो जाता है, Similarly, if I start speaking Hindi, then everything slows down, because you will see my smiling face and very relaxed, but inside, so many processors are working to find the words, the right Hindi words. So मैं प्रयत्न करूँगा.
So I'm giving you a little trouble. So say this
No, that's fine.
And please summarize it in very short in Hindi as well, how it applies to teachers.
So let me try in English 2 sentences, and then I'll do that in Hindi.
Sure.
For a teacher, think from a teacher's perspective. The word for teacher used is, achar, acharya. Acharya is also the word. And what does that mean is achar, meaning acharan. Whatever the teacher is teaching, he or she is practicing it herself, and for the joy of it. Okay, so the samshay, the teacher should practice samshay, teacher should practice shraddha, and teacher should also practice jijnyasa. And I don't mean only in the classroom to show it, but actually teacher should be a living example of it. It won't be in every field. I mean, a physics teacher might be researching on a Bharatnatyam, and that's perfectly fine. Or a biology teacher might be studying something in mathematics. That's perfectly fine. But that curiosity is there. अभी हिंदी में आप मुझे मदद कर सकते हैं, लेकिन हम बोल सकते हैं कि टीचर को जो टीचर एक्चुअली हिंदी में, और हमारे जब कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन बना 1947 में, borrowed whatever it is, तब अभी now there are many languages listed, but that I पता नहीं मुझे 26 29 ऐसे कुछ अभी होंगे, but उस that time 14 languages list हुए थे. पूरा हमारे संस्कृत से लेके 14 लैंग्वेजेस जो इंडिया की है, जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में पहले जब थी, कोई भी हमारे इंडिया के लैंग्वेज में टीच के लिए शब्द नहीं है. टीच के लिए शब्द ही नहीं है. अभी आप बोलोगे ये क्या आप बता रहे, अरे भाई कितना शब्द है, शिक्षक है, शिक्षिका है, अध्यापक है, आचार्य है, ये सबका आप मीनिंग ढूंढने जाओगे तो उसका मीनिंग है टू असिस्ट इन लर्निंग. शिक्षा, शिक्षा, शिक्षक, असिस्ट इन लर्निंग. ऋग्वेद में भी ऐसा एक श्लोक आता है, अभी लंबा जाऊंगा नहीं, कि उसमें बोलता है कि इंद्र को प्रार्थना करते हैं कि हे तू बिकम अ टीचर और हमें मदद कर, जो जो आपके पास जो स्किल्स है वो हमारे साथ शेयर करो. इट्स लाइक त्वन्नो अस्याम तेरुतक्षुदो अभिशस्तु रवस्पृधि त्वन्न उति तव चित्रया धिया शिक्षा शचिष्ट गातुवित. become a guide, become a coach, become a mentor, become a pathfinder. गातुवित. ये संस्कृत में बोला तो हमें लगता है कुछ तो कॉम्प्लिकेटेड है, no, that's what it is saying. Okay, become a pathfinder.
So when we say a teacher, according to Indian thought process, is a facilitator.
Yes.
Who's helping the seeker to move on the right path, but search by himself. Know
Correct.
what truth he's finding, and just not to show where to find it.
Yes.
Or showing where he can get it, but not exactly what. Because what happens is, in current times, teachers tell that this is what you have to do, and this is what you have to learn and remember.
करेक्ट. तो उसमें लर्न करने का कुछ है ही नहीं ना. आपने ही दिखाया उनको कि भाई ये उसका आंसर है, तो वो बोलता है थैंक यू, धन्यवाद, नाउ आई विल गो बैक टू माय वीडियो वाचिंग और गेम प्लेइंग, व्हाटएवर इट इज, राइट. दिस इट्स, ये जो चीज है रिसर्च की, यही गेम बन जाता है. इफ यू गेट इनटू दिस game of research, I'm not saying anything wrong with playing the video games. Video games also has its place, but not playing for hours. 15 minutes is a day is a fine. But if you get into this, इसमें आपकी रुचि हो गई तो आपको बाकी जरूरत नहीं पड़ेगी. मैं एग्जांपल बताता हूँ, नॉट दैट मुझे टीवी के साथ कोई प्रॉब्लम है, बट हमारे घर में टीवी नहीं है, और ये 30 साल के मैं बात कर रहा हूँ. मैं पहले न्यूज़पेपर कॉर्पोरेट में पढ़ता था, न्यूज़पेपर मैंने कभी बंद कर दिया, उसको भी 25 इयर्स हो गए. देन मैगजीन स्लोली बंद कर दिया. नाउ ये मैं थोड़ा रॉन्ग एडवाइस लोगों को लगेगा, बट एक्चुअली दिस इज अ करेक्ट एडवाइस. फर्स्ट स्टॉप दिस, जैसे टीवी जैसे जो माध्यम है, या न्यूज़पेपर्स, ऑर्डिनरी मैगजीन्स, फर्स्ट स्टॉप इट, बिकॉज इट्स सच अ क्लटर. उसमें से आपको जिसमें एकदम आपको रुचि आएगी, ऐसा संशोधन नहीं मिलेगा उसमें से. ऐसा एक saying है कि if you think you have invented something new or discovered something new, please go read old books. आपको लगता है आपने कुछ नया किया है, कुछ नया नहीं किया है. I mean, I'm just jokingly saying most of it is there in the old books of the east or a west. Okay, so simple भाषा में कि अपने जो टीचर्स है, आचार्य वर्ड है, आचरण उन्होंने किया तो बच्चे लोग आप समझ जाएंगे. ये पेरेंट्स के लिए भी है. पेरेंट्स कुछ तो पार्टी करते बैठेंगे और बच्चों को बोलेंगे बच्चों पढ़ो, वो बुक पढ़ो, मैंने लाया है ना आपको बुक्स, वो पढ़ो, कॉमिक्स जो कुछ है वो, तो बच्चे नहीं पढ़ेंगे. बच्चे वॉचिंग एट द पेरेंट्स. ओके, सो द आचरण, आचार, विचार, प्रचार, संचार, ये सब में चर, देयर इज एक्शन. एक्शन के बिना कुछ नहीं होने वाला.
I think this was very profound, very, very profound. We can understand if we are all teachers in India, born here and have studied here and are teaching the children of India. This is what the thought process is. Let us be role models by believing in it, internalizing it, and bringing it in our behavior, not just to show off, but making it a way of life and being a facilitator in the same journey for the child as well. So, sir, thank you so much. I would say there is a lot for me to learn and understand what you have said. It was very profound and deep. I'm sure my friends share the same sentiments. I would not claim to be so intelligent that I have understood everything wholly. But yes, it has been very, very interesting. And I have become inquisitive to learn this at depth, and we'll do that, sir. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
It was fantastic. Looking forward to guidance and support in the future as well.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for patiently staying through. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Wish you a very happy new year. Stay safe, stay healthy and happy. The same wishes to all the participants, and see you next week at 41st Aadharshila Talk at RRIS. Thank you, sir. Have a great day there.
Thank you. All of you have a great evening. Okay, bye.
Thank you so much, sir. Bye. Namaste.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Principal Ma'am.